by, this is our verse today, actually, we'll talk more, but just this act of coming together every day, 5 days a week at least, to do this Bhagavatam can put us on a speed track, right? So
let's recite our pranams to the Acharyas and Vyasadeva.
Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tatho jayamudire.
And this verse that you see on the screen.
Nashta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati nashtaki. So what we did so far? What did we do so far?
So we have been going through, so again, this is a conversation that is happening, and Sutta Goswami will ask, what is the highest good that you have ascertained from studying all the scriptures, and what is the essence of all the scriptures? So that is being presented in these verses. The whole range of the Bhagavad philosophy is presented from the starting point, which is Shraddha, or little bit of faith, to the highest stage of attaining love of God is explained in these 5-6 verses. So in this verse, so far,
you know what I really like about this is the fact that, like, say if you're driving and sometimes you're not sure if the road that you're taking is all right. So then, it says, oh, if you go 10 miles, then you'll come across a gas station. And then if you look on the right, then there is this, supplies, whatever, convenience store. So then you're walking and then you say, oh, yeah, I see that.
I see. So the map is good. I don't have to.
I don't have to I don't have to ask, because Lokas definitely has that quality that when he, earlier back in the day, he would have a map from AAA. And then he would also Google map, like he would print out a map, and then he would also stop at a gas station to ask somebody.
Yes.
Right? So you would do that back before we had GPS.
Because you would constantly keep asking me, have you reached there? Have you reached there?
Exactly. So the point is that we ourselves may experience that. We may doubt that, I don't know if this is really taking me where I want to go, right? So what I love about this section, and this is actually explained in much greater detail in Madhurya Kadambini by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that all the different milestones are given, what to expect. And then you look at the chart and you go, oh yeah, I'm on the chart. That's good news.
So in the last verses, we discussed how if somebody doesn't have any taste for hearing about God, we meet so many people and we tell them this is a book on the Bhagavad Gita, this is a book, Word of God. They say, oh, I'm okay, I'm not interested.
Actually, Prabhupada actually makes a joke about it, that a person is, on the deathbed and somebody is telling him, chant. And he goes, can't. So it's, and there is actually a story like that. There's a story of this person who wrote the Ramayana, Valmiki. And he was instructed by Narada that, you should chant the name of Lord Ram because you've committed so many sinful activities. And he said, I cannot do it. I just cannot. Even if I want to, I cannot. So then Valmiki says, so the Narada tells him that, all right, if you cannot chant Ram, then just chant Mara, which, when you put Ram up, like not upside down, but reverse, then it becomes Mara. Mara means death. So he is able to chant that.
So somebody may ask them, how can I develop a taste for the spiritual life, spiritual knowledge? Then Vyasadeva says two things. First, he says, you just do some service to the great saintly devotees. And from that, you will develop a taste. And he's repeating that same thing here, that after you develop the taste, so the first stage is Shraddha, a little bit of faith. And the second stage is you engage in hearing in the association of devotees. And that creates your taste. You start liking it. And so then what happens next? When you hear Krishna Katha, then what happens next? So this is this verse. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, established as an irrevocable fact. So this verse talks about the process that is prescribed here is Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya. So what is Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya?
Yeah, Nityam Bhagavat Seva is exactly what we are doing every day. We're coming together and we are rendering service to the Bhagavatam. So, somebody might say, why should hearing the Bhagavatam constitute service? Or why? So before we talk about Bhagavatam, Prabhupada actually makes a very interesting point. He says, it's not saying render service to Bhagavan, right? Bhagavan is the supreme person. Rather, it is saying rendering service to the Bhagavata. So then Prabhupada describes what is the Bhagavata. Bhagavata is anything in relationship to Bhagavan.
So he describes two kinds of Bhagavatam, or two kinds of Bhagavata. He says one is the book Bhagavata that we are reading right now, is Bhagavatam, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. And the second Bhagavat is the devotee Bhagavat. So devotee Bhagavat is defined as somebody who is living his life in accordance with the book Bhagavata. So there are so many people you will see that who speak this philosophy, who may speak this philosophy. They may speak very well, they're good orators, but are they living their life in accordance with the book Bhagavata?
And we find that most people are not, right?
Yeah.
And so we have to find people who are actually trying to live their life according to the book Bhagavata, and by rendering service to this. Why is that considered to be service? Because, for example, Prabhupada, I was just hearing a lecture about how Prabhupada would get up early in the morning, even before the birds were up. Prabhupada would get up, in the 2 o'clock in the morning, or maybe even 1:30 in the morning, and he would write these commentaries to these Bhagavatam, these Bhaktivedanta purports, right, to this book Bhagavatam. And so, so by actually reading, just simply by reading them, simply by hearing them, one is actually rendering service to Prabhupada and all the other acharyas who have painstakingly sat down, sometimes under a tree, with very little to eat. Like Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, they would just eat in 24 hours enough buttermilk that could fill up the palm of their hand. And they would sleep on a different tree. And what were they doing? They were simply writing these literatures so that we could read them, 500 years later.
So the reason they would sleep under a different tree every night is that their logic was they didn't want to get attached to a particular tree, because once you become comfortable, hey, this is my tree, I like my tree, why are you sleeping under my tree? So all these feelings can come up. So therefore, this is what Prabhupada would do by reading the commentaries of previous teachers. He was rendering service to the Bhagavatas before him. And so hearing Bhagavata is the greatest service. Sometimes we think that, I have to physically do something. That is also good. But just hearing, we do the greatest service in spiritual life through our ears, actually. And an attentive ear is an instrument of great service, because through that attentive ear, we open our heart, we receive something from our heart, and then we follow it.
Actually, it's interesting. Sometimes this question is asked, like, what do you give to someone who has everything? It's the most difficult thing. Like, it's like, all right, what do I already have it. Like, I already have it. So, the Supreme Person, we defined the Supreme Absolute Truth as that from which everything else emanates. So he has everything. So what can you give him? There is one thing that is exclusively ours, and that is so sacred that even Krishna does not intervene in that. And that is our attention. So that attention, when we offer it to Krishna out of love, then that constitutes the highest form of worship.
Because that's what that's the cause of our turning away from Krishna, because we stop being interested in Krishna. We are not paying attention to Krishna. And that's why we are in this material life. So turning our attention back to Krishna is basically going back to the spiritual world.
Yeah. And so when we do this Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, so we are offering service. So this reading of Bhagavatam, sometimes we may feel like we are accumulating knowledge, or I'm going to conquer this Bhagavatam. Just like I took a book in my engineering college, right? Read it, completed it. No, it's actually a form of service. What happens when we offer this service? Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu. Oh, you want to? Okay.
So this, we offer service through hearing. And then the other way we offer service to the person Bhagavata is by also physically serving them in some way, offering some menial service, carrying out the instructions, listening to the instructions of these great devotees, and carrying them out to the best of our capacity. That is great service. So continue with.
Okay, so there's so many examples of like great personalities, especially like Narada. Sometimes you think you have to be this great person, but Narada was just a young boy, and he was a son of a maidservant. And he was just, there were these great sages who arrived at their home, and Narada actually, he was a little boy. He was so obedient and just such a good boy. He would actually go and he would serve them, take care of them, offer his services. And in this way,
he would hear from them.
And he would attentively hear from them. And in that way, he actually went on to become this great sage Narada, who is, by the way, the spiritual master of this author of this book, Vyasa, right? So he became, so just by associating. So what happens when we associate in this way is that we get infected by what's in their heart. And what's in their heart? What's in their heart is pure love. And so all of these, and we talked about this yesterday, that we are carrying within us like a huge, like you have a truck filled with all kinds of stuff in it.
It's like a landfill.
It's a landfill. It's a landfill of unused, unwanted, useless things. No value, absolutely no value, but we filled it up, right? So how do we get rid of it? So sometimes people say, all right, just engage in atonement. Some people say, all right, you have some bad qualities in you, go and whatever, do some ritual and then try to go take a bath in the Ganga and you'll be purified. But the Srimad Bhagavatam says, nah, doesn't work. Because if you Radhanath Swami actually says that the reason for this global pollution is because there's pollution in the heart. And so even if you clean up all the rivers and all the streams and all the forest and everything, but as long as there is pollution within the heart, we will go ahead and we'll refill that. We'll go and pollute it again.
It's our tendency to accumulate anarthas. So not just anarthas, but our desire to accumulate anarthas. Even if you clean it up, we'll fill it up again. So how do we take care of both these problems? And that happens through just this oral reception in an attentive mood from devotees on the Bhagavatam.
That itself, and somebody was, that's too simple. But again, one has to give it a try, and we'll see that very quickly, right? Very, very quickly, one will actually become purified. And I really like this word, abhadra. This is an amazing word, and it's a word that we can actually meditate on. Bhadra means auspicious. Abhadra means anything that is inauspicious. So it's very interesting that we're actually holding on to so many things which are so inauspicious, and all they cause us is grief and hurt and pain. And it's almost like, you see a man holding on to a bear and saying, what do I do? The bear won't let me go, right? But it's me. I'm holding on tight. In fact, I think we once showed this video of a monkey, how monkeys are caught in the forest of Africa. And what they do is they have this little hole, and in that hole they put some kind of something that attracts a monkey.
Or they will use a coconut
shell.
Coconut shell, cut out the top, and then have a small hole there, and put some nuts or something inside that hole. And the monkey he just follows, he falls into the trap, and he goes and then puts his hand inside and then and makes his fist because he wants to take it out. Now,
so he has his hand inside that hole, and he's trying to grab onto the nuts, and it's like this. And the more he tries to, pull out and yank out his hand from the hole, he cannot do it.
Because the fist gets stuck.
The fist gets stuck. Now, the only thing he has to do is, and in the meantime, the hunter comes and captures him, right? And the only thing he had to do was to just open his fist and just let go. And the hand would come out of that hole. But he doesn't know that. So the same way, we are the same way. So what do we do then? Gosh, what
I guess the symptom of this anartha is that we feel stuck in life. Like whenever we feel stuck or I'm not free and I'm feeling really stressed out between so many different things, that means there is an abhadra in our heart, and it's time to let that go.
Yeah. So but then it is not within sometimes our capacity to let it go, even though we may talk about it. So then you need this support, this help. When you hear the sound vibration, automatically the desire to hold on to those things actually go away, because now one has received something even better. So you say, all right, I don't need this. I got something better, right? So it's very easy.
And Prabhupada also says that in this verse describes how Krishna within the heart, he acts as a sweeper, and he actually removes the anarthas, because we don't have the power. Each anartha is like a mountain, like Mount Everest, and we have no power to move it on our own. So who can do that? When we just hear Krishna's glories through our ears, and Krishna acting because he's sitting in the heart. So he has all the tools and equipment to move mountains. He can do anything. So he moves these mountains of anarthas from
Actually,
our heart.
Jesus said, right, that faith the size of a mustard seed can move a mountain. So just a little bit of faith and being able to hear actually can remove this mountain-like anarthas.
And so what happens is, the next stage is if this.
So hold on. So this verse actually talks about 3 stages of bhakti, because remember we were talking about stages of bhakti. So this particular verse talks about bhakti, which is bhakti. It's the common thing throughout.
It's the starting of when we associate with devotees, and bhakti starts developing. And when bhakti starts developing, the next important thing that happens is the removal of anarthas.
So that's the next stage, is anartha nivritti. And then if you remember in this verse, we came across this word neshtaki. So that word neshtaki means another stage of bhakti, another milestone, which is fixed up bhakti. So we'll talk more about that later.
Nishtha is here.
Right, but what is the symptom?
So nishtha means that I'm steady, my bhakti is steady. It's not that I'm doing it sometimes, not doing it sometimes, and nobody has to convince me about bhakti anymore. my heart is now fully dedicated to practicing the practices of bhakti. I'm able to follow them naturally.
So let's move on to the next verse, right?
Yeah.
So
what is the effect of this Nestiki Bhakti? How do I know that I have developed Nestiki Bhakti within myself or in others?
Let's recite.
Tadarajastamo bhava kamalobhatayaschaye chetayetaravidham sitam sattve prasidati.
As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes completely happy. Completely happy. So this is the effect of fixed up bhakti, that right now, what is the reason? Sometimes we think the cause of all my suffering is my neighbor. The cause of all my suffering is this person. If only this person could change, I would be happy. But here it is being described that the cause of all my unhappiness is my infection due to the modes of passion and ignorance.
So it is saying cheta etir anavidham. Vidham means something that pierces our heart. And what has currently pierced our heart is this modes of passion and ignorance, which basically manifest in lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, laziness. All these qualities, these are like arrows, like piercing our heart, and our heart is completely exhausted trying to deal with arrows. So what this is saying is that by hearing Krishna's glories in the association of devotees, all these things are removed, all these arrows are removed from our heart.
And they're constantly burning our heart, right? So these things like lust, the more you satisfy it, the more it burns. And it keeps burning and it doesn't give us any. In fact, there is a prayer where this great Acharya is saying that these senses that I've been serving forever and ever, they're like false masters. And I keep serving them, but I never get any relief, right?
So when these things go away, then the heart is situated in Suddha Sattva, or pure goodness. That is the nature of spiritual world. In the spiritual world, it's only pure goodness. There is no passion and ignorance. So a devotee, a person, a practitioner can experience this in their own life. That passion and ignorance are gone, and this is the stage of Nestiki Bhakti. And then the next stage is described here is Ruchi and Asakti. Ruchi means taste. Now you develop a spontaneous taste of practicing bhakti. Chanting becomes spontaneously attractive. Nobody has to tell me, or I don't have to convince myself.
Yeah. Like Rupa Goswami, right? He says that how he desires like millions of years and millions of tongues. When a practitioner like me, when we hear that, we're like, how is that? Like for us, it's an austerity. But the thing is that if we keep performing it, then at some point, then the natural taste within the heart, as these effect of passion and ignorance subside, then the real taste of the heart will actually come up.
Yeah, just like a boy and a girl, when they're in love with each other, they are constantly waiting, oh, when will I get to see this person? Nobody has to tell them. So similarly, a practitioner is looking forward to chanting, is looking forward to hearing about Krishna. And it's like a very relishable thing, just like as if you are waiting for the dessert at the end of the meal. So that's the ruchi. And asakti means the attachment, firm, steady attachment to Krishna develops. That's the next stage.
Can I just interrupt? I'm sorry, but I was just thinking that all of us, these words may seem so far out, but the reality is each one of us, we have asakti. Each one of us, we just have asakti in asat, which means, and I'll translate that in English, asakti means firm attachment. Asat means into the temporary. So if you look into our heart, it could be our child, it could be our whoever, our friend, money, power, but we all have asakti. So we have a taste of what that feels like. It's like an irresistible urge. You cannot not think about it.
Even if a tiny thing goes wrong in that domain, then our full energy and full focus just goes towards that. Okay, how do I fix that? How do I make it better again?
Yeah, you cannot think of anything else.
Yeah.
And you're willing to, even after giving your full self, you still think, oh, I haven't done anything. I couldn't take care. I couldn't do enough. So that level of love and attachment is something that we are familiar with. But all it gives us is just disappointment and heartbreak, right? So this asakti is actually what one develops towards the absolute truth, towards Krishna, just by the process of hearing and associating and serving the Bhagavatas. And in this way, the heart is no longer pierced. It's no longer pierced, and it's no longer experiencing this fire, this burning fire within the heart.
So in these two verses, we discussed these three important stages of bhakti. which is Nishta Bhakti, which is when all the unwanted things are removed, and the symptoms of that is the modes of passion and ignorance are gone, and we reach the stage of Ruchi, where we have a spontaneous attraction for uh, 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 chanting Krishna's names or anything to do with devotional service. That further matures into Asakti, where at that stage, even if the mind wanders a little bit, but it's brought back, and there's the attraction to Krishna is so strong that nothing can distract you from thinking about Krishna continuously.
You know, one time I was driving my car. You have to go. I was driving a car and I was going to pick up Nimai, and I was listening to Prabhupada's lecture in the car. And all of a sudden, you know, Prabhupada said something that was like really like just hit me, you know, and I was like really shaken up by his statement. And he said that if you are practicing bhakti, then you must experience happiness. And I was like, oh, and then he said, and if you're not experiencing happiness, then, you know, that means, you know, and I guess it's clear. So that really shook me up, because I was like, oh my God, you know, that's a very, very high bar. And then he went on to explain that why would a person eat and not experience fullness? If you eat, your hunger should go away. And then he went on to talk about that in that particular lecture. He said, yes, but there's one occasion where you may eat, but your hunger will not go, which is if you have worms in the stomach. And then I was like, and then he said, so if you have worms, what are those worms? Those worms are these lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, madness. All of these things are like worms. So even though we are trying, but because of the presence of these worms, we are not able to experience happiness. However, if we simply just continue, then by the power of this sound vibration coming down in this disciplic chain, all of these worms, which are actually right now impeding our experience of Krishna face to face, will be eliminated, and we will be able to see Krishna face to face and experience the highest and the deepest happiness, that for which the heart is constantly hankering. So with that, I will pause here and see if you guys have any questions or thoughts, reflections.
Yeah, hi, I have actually one question. Like
Yes.
just today, I was thinking about attention as I was chanting, and my attention was going away. I was I would pray to Krishna to help me with getting back to connecting with him. And you mentioned that the connection is the attention is not something that Krishna can give us. That is something that we have to bring to the table. So that's what you mentioned, right? That we have to keep doing that for ourselves. So that is not something we can get from anywhere else.
Yeah, we can get it from the association of devotees. We can pray for it. We can even pray to Krishna that please attract my heart, please pull me. We see, I was thinking about something similar this morning as well. I was thinking of Lord Balaram, who actually has a plow, and he wanted the Yamuna. He actually dragged Yamuna with his plow, and brought her inland. And I was thinking that in the same way, I need some help. So I was praying to Lord Balaram that please, drag my consciousness, pull my consciousness. Another very beautiful thing I heard is that Lord Krishna is like a cowherd boy, and he has a stick in his hand. And one of the things he does is that he herds the cows. So cows are actually also, the word cow or go also means the senses, and go also means cows. So, Krishna, with his mercy stick. So sometimes these cows have a tendency to go into a lake, which is poisonous or which is not very good for them. And so with his mercy stick, if Krishna can herd the cows back towards him and bring those cows back to the nectarian waters. So like that, we can pray to Krishna, to the devotees, and by that, we will receive this ability to put our attention on the holy name.
Thank you. Yeah, my understanding was that, the illusion, Maya, like the material energy is also comes from Krishna. So he has control over it,
Yes.
where these three modes are concerned. So, if you want to try and break free from them, then, maybe, we can pray to him for that.
Yes, we can. Absolutely. What we do have is the intention. Our attention may be difficult to place, but if we have at least an intention that please let my attention always be diverted towards you, then Krishna will remove these layers, these coverings that prevent us from being able to place our attention there. So we can start with our intention, and the attention will follow.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Rebecca, haven't heard from you. Vinny, Beth, it's so good to have you, Beth.
Thank you. It's so good to be here and hear your voice.
I was thinking about you just this morning, Beth. Seriously. I was thinking, I haven't seen Beth.
I must have heard you.
So any other reflections or questions or comments? Manjari, if you have anything.
I have a question.
Yes, Beth.
I'm self-employed, and so I'm looking for contracts and business all the time. And sometimes I get confused about how to really integrate, like, there's my cat. I just don't know how to have harmony between the teachings that I hear today and really having to hustle for work.
Yeah, I often think about Arjuna's job description. It doesn't fit, the stereotype of a sage sitting peacefully and chanting. It's in the midst of a battlefield. And, one can only imagine that how much one has to connect within so that one is not affected as one deals with the material energy outside. So to the extent that we find ourselves having to hustle in this world, having to deal with difficult situations, finding ourselves in the middle of a battlefield where, there's just so many things that can pull us away. To that extent, our practices can actually become deeper and because we actually feel the need for it now. If I don't, spend this time, I think there's a Buddhist saying where it says that if you are, you should meditate whatever, and I'm paraphrasing, you should meditate for half an hour every day. And if you are super busy, then you should do it for one. Something like that. I mean, the idea being that if I'm finding that my work situation or my life situation or my family situation is actually more intense, then that's the time that the more time I take out for connecting within, the more efficient I will be in my hustling. And the second part is that it will also not affect my consciousness.
That's so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Anybody else? So reflection is, yes.
Maybe I can ask one more question.
Okay.
So how do we know what stage of bhakti we are in?
Well, we can happily at least conclude that most of us are at the anartha nivritti if we have taken up the practices. So let's go through the stages. You'll know it yourself. The first stage is a little bit of faith. I just want to check it out. Maybe these guys have something they're talking about. Maybe, there is something to it. So that's adau shraddha, beginning, openness of faith. And then the second one is sadhu sangha. I don't know. I'm just going to hang around these guys and see what they're trying to say. That's sadhu sangha. That means I'm just going to associate. That's the second stage. The third stage is, what they say actually does make some sense. I'm going to try what they're talking about. Let me try this chanting. Let me try and hear. So that's called bhajana. Well, bhajana kriya, which means now I'm engaging in the practices. And then the fourth stage is anartha nivritti, which means that, hey, now I can experience the heat. And my consciousness is now beginning to churn. And all these things like lust, anger, which I used to get angry way before, like anything would trigger me. Now, I'm somehow removed from these things, and I can see that there is a purification that is happening within me. So that's the process that is the fourth stage, anartha nivritti. And for most of us, we are probably there. And if we stay with the process and continue and don't give it up, then we will enter into the fifth stage, which is fixed up bhakti. It's at the stage of fixed up bhakti that, that we can start experiencing the taste of Krishna consciousness, the taste of bhakti. And then from there on, the road is much quicker. It's like downhill. So it's like climbing a mountain. Anartha nivritti is uphill climb. You have to really make an effort. Once you hit nishtha, after that, it's all downhill. After that, ruchi, asakti, you just fall in love after that. And then it's all spontaneous.
Thank you. I love that example.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Sapna.
Mataji, I have the questions from Bhagavad Gita. Can I
Bhagavad
ask
Gita.
you?
Okay,
Yeah.
so what I'm going to do, Sapna, after this class is over, I'll wait for another 5-7 minutes and I'll answer your questions. In the meantime, let me first just churn this topic a little bit. I'll come back to you.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Jeanette, Manjari, Vinny, Devanshi, anybody? I just, it's nice to reflect. So reflection is anything that you heard that you want to reflect back to the group.
Hare Krishna, Vanita.
Hey, I was missing you. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to see a friend today. So we are both listening. We're sitting together and listening to you. But no questions yet. That's Sunanda and that's Vinita. We're just saying Hare Krishna.
Hey, Sunanda, how nice to see you.
Same here. It was nice. And when she told me, I was quite surprised living in DC and all this coming from there. Wow.
You guys are living in Kolkata and you're doing it.
So yeah, so it's become a big stage now, all one. Everybody can reach everybody so easily.
Wonderful.
So yeah,
I'm so happy and so grateful that you joined.
but thank you. So we are just listening, and that's why I've just put the video and audio.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. All right, one last comment and then I promise we end.
हरे
Yes,
कृष्णा
Rachna.
माता जी। माता जी, हम जैसे जब कृष्ण की भक्ति करते हैं, चैंटिंग करते हैं, तो हम कृष्णमय हो जाते हैं। फिर जैसे ही वो हम लोग बंद कर देते हैं, बंद भी कुछ टाइम को और भी काम है, जैसे इस सांसारिक जो वर्ड है उसके, तो वो फिर वो मटेरियलिस्टिक चीजें हावी क्यों हो जाती हैं? वो फिर वो ऐसा क्यों लगता है? क्योंकि जब हम मतलब उनका चैंटिंग करते हैं, उनका ध्यान करते हैं, तो पूरा कृष्ण में हो जाते हैं, और जैसे ही वो बंद होती है और हम रियल वर्ल्ड में आते हैं, तो वो सारी चीजें हावी हो जाती हैं, वो थॉट्स हावी हो जाते हैं, रिलेशन हावी हो जाते हैं, वो सारी चीजें हावी क्यों हो जाती है इतना?
Very nice. So I'll repeat this question in English. So Rachna is asking that, as long as we are in the association of devotees, as long as we are chanting, reading, we are, we feel that, we are able to remember Krishna and focus our attention on Krishna. As soon as we leave this association or we stop chanting, then immediately all these materialistic ideas and thoughts, they seem to overcome our consciousness. So yes, in the beginning stages of Krishna consciousness, this is very much the case. Why? Because we are still under the influence of passion and ignorance. We are still under the influence of this material energy. And so we have to give ourselves time. However, there's great power in actually continuously putting ourselves in that fire over and over and over again. One time somebody went to a homeopathic doctor and asked a similar question. And the homeopathic doctor said, this is what I do. I take a pill, I put it in that liquid, I take it out, it gets dry again. Again, I take the same pill and I put it back in that liquid. Again, it kind of takes in a little bit and again it gets dry. So this process of, putting ourselves again and again in that sound vibration, this is the reason why in this particular verse, the word that is used is Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, because we have been associated with this consciousness since time immemorial. We have been, we have actually accepted the standard of life as our real standard of happiness. And so it'll take us some time to let go of that and actually enter into a new reality. So that's why we just have to keep doing it, and we have to be patient. And we have to also have the confidence that one day our consciousness will actually become naturally, spontaneously attracted by this. But it'll take some time. So
can I just add one thing, Didi?
Yes, Devanshi, please go ahead.
No, just one thing. So, and this comes to me from back many years when we used to have class at your home.
Yeah.
And I think we have had this discussion. And then you and Bhaiya would always emphasize that, association is very important.
Yes.
Because we definitely keep falling back to the worldly desires or feelings like we were talking about. So I think it's always at least to startle us that where we are, what we are experiencing, and we should realize that what we are going through and what we shouldn't focus on. I think it's the association part which is really important.
Love it. And here is the thing. There's a verse in the Srimad Bhagvatam which says that even if you go away, what will happen is that you will keep remembering the taste over and over and over again, and it'll bring you back. If there is, I mean, you know, there is no way that a living entity can be ever satisfied with any other taste. We are meant for the highest kind of pleasure. We are meant for the highest kind of pleasure and the deepest kind of love. Where is it? You know, all pleasures in this world has a beginning and has an end, and it has a hangover. So, you know, the heart is not satisfied with that. That's our experience. That's my experience. And I've, you know, whoever I have met have also felt the same way with whatever. And the example that is given is of a fish out of water. You take the fish out of water and you keep giving it the best suntan oil, the best beach chair, the best drink, whatever. But the fish is continuously going to be very restless. But you take the same fish and you put it back in the water, the fish is happy and it's free and it loves the water because that's its natural environment. So same way with us, that, you know, we, you know, even if, as you're saying, Rachna, the mind gets taken over by these other thoughts, but those other thoughts will not stay because they're not real. You know, very soon your heart will again say, but I like this more. This is sweeter. This is better. So this is not a matter of letting go. It's a matter of accepting. It's a matter of receiving. So I don't want to hold you guys because it's already 10:47. But I still want to make myself available for more questions, because the feedback I've received is that people want some time for reflection. So those of you who need to leave, you know, you're welcome to leave now. And those, I know Sapna had some Bhagavad Gita questions, so I'll be happy to stay and answer. And if anyone else has any other questions, I'll stay for another 10 minutes and I'll continue to answer questions. So Sapna, you can go ahead now. Yes, Pradiptaji, thank you.
Thank you,
Hello.
ma'am. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Sapna.
Mataji, in
Krishna,
second
thank you.
chapter, in second chapter, verse 15,
Yeah.
it was mentioned that Lord Chaitanya took a sannyas on age of 24.
Yes.
As he was having his wife and mother,
Yes.
though they both were dependent on him. My question is that what that means. We should leave everything, or
Yes.
what is the...
No. So, you know, you see Lord Shiva, he drinks poison, right? So it doesn't mean that we're all meant to, you know, drink poison. So when you see great personalities, their activities, we are not meant to imitate their activities. In India, you see that sometimes. You see, you know, sometimes teachers, they will imitate Krishna, they'll wear a peacock feather, or they will, you know, they will behave like they are, you know, God, or, you know, but that's not recommended. So we are meant to follow, not imitate great personalities. So Lord Chaitanya, because he is actually non-different from Radha and Krishna, so he actually took sannyas at this young age. But actually, in this age of Kali Yuga, sannyas is actually not even recommended. So we are not meant to give up our families or go off to the Himalayas or even perform some severe austerities for this age. That is not recommended. What is recommended is we transform our consciousness from material into spiritual. And for that, you don't need a particular situation. You can be a householder, you can be a housewife, you can be a working woman, you can be whatever you are. And all we are trying to do is actually transform our consciousness by how, and the process that is actually given or recommended is simply by coming in touch with spiritual sound vibration. Sound is the most powerful thing that can actually change our consciousness from matter to spirit. And so for that, you don't need to change your ashram. You don't need to change your clothes. Does that help, Sapna?
Yes, Mataji, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So thank you. I don't know if anyone else. So good to see you, Devanshi, Bhaktilata, Tarini. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you very much. Vinny, Jeanette.